Great.
All right, there we are. And we're back. So today's Friday, January 7th, this episode. Happy New Year, everybody. This is Between Two Teachers. So we are going to catch up on what's going on. It's just chaos, that's all, as usual. But my name is Consuelo Lara.
And I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and welcome to 2022. And it is still very chaotic. But I will begin with our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we have gathered on the ancestral territory of Hui Chin, which is part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Karkan-speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. We offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people of the past and present. So, welcome again to January 2022. And this right now is the January of Omicron. Our nation is swamped with the Omicron variant of the coronavirus, and it is it's done incredible things on the East Coast. There are school districts that are closing. The Chicago teachers went on strike and closed because it is so infectious, and the strategies that folks have taken up until now haven't been successful against this, right? The good news is it doesn't seem to be as fatal. The mortality rate is not the same, but at the same time, people are getting sick. And I know that my conversations with folks about if you get it, you could still wind up with long-term COVID.
Wow.
There are people, you never know what that side effect will be, right? So even if there are certainly many people who will have it and get through it with a very light case, but you don't know what your underlying condition might be that would be triggered by this, and you certainly don't know who will get long-term COVID and who won't, and that can be a really debilitating thing. So anyway, as of right now, it may well be, and hopefully soon, that we'll reach the point where it is more like the flu, and we treat it like the flu, and we get another shot every year to upgrade it. But now,
one of the examples I know of that is a pediatrician was saying how a child got it and it was over, but had lost his sense of taste.
Yeah.
And children, you want them to eat healthy, and you want, that's a terrible thing to lose as a child, your sense of taste, and it could affect so many things. Hopefully it comes back, but so yeah, it's less fatal, but there's still consequences for it. We can't risk those. So we're still fighting this on our school fronts for sure.
We are, and part of what's happened is this whole dance of testing. You get tested, and when you get tested now, people have home tests. Home tests have been delivered. We have talked here about how home tests had originally been the only place in the Bay Area that they were being delivered was in Marin County. Marin County is, of course, an affluent community, highly vaccinated and very proactive. And so they were one of the first ones that were sending the kits home early in the autumn to their families to be able to do the home tests. That was before anybody heard of Omicron.
Yeah.
It's continued on now. Now the county has been involved in part of the distribution of the tests, right?
Yes, they have. And the County Office of Education, they arrived and they were distributed. But like anything else, you distribute, and then there's always the next level of distribution. And so hopefully they're getting to where they need to be. And follow up and coordination is really needed. I have a good friend, Genoveva Calloway, who was the mayor of San Pablo and on the school city council for many years, is part of a group that is United Latino Voices, and they're trying to do a thing countywide implementing vaccines and tests, etc. And they're trying to coordinate these so there's not duplication of services. And so you could cover more ground. So people need to really start talking to each other. I know she connected with adult ed, and that was a really good partnership. She knows how to coordinate with people, but she's concerned about the schools having duplicate or, people just need to start collaborating a bit more on this. And the county is where to start. The county has to show that we have to follow through and not just say, oh, we sent those out. Well, okay, next step, how do we know, how far did they get? So
Right.
that's on us as county, at the county board of
This
supervisors.
has got to be a team. This has got to be a team effort, right? And we can't just blame, the national government. Well, they're only going to do so much. They're going to send it. Well, who are they going to send it to? They send it to the state, and the state sends it to the counties. That's how things are set up.
Yeah, that's how it
They're
works.
not going to, the federal government's not going to send it to your house. That's not how, right?
Yeah,
They're not going to do that. That's not how it's going to happen.
so they're gonna blame Biden. I didn't get one, so that's Biden's fault.
Right. I didn't get one.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. And then when the deal with those tests is you really need to keep taking them. And then every time somebody is in fact positive, which is more and more common because of Omicron, then you have to go into a quarantine situation.
Yes,
And that means that you have very limited staffing in different schools. And that has created the whole issue of Chicago. The Chicago teachers have just stayed home. They've just put their district on a basically it's a sick out, I think is what they're calling it. West Contra Costa has taken today, Friday off, and Monday off, and they're using their smoke days. And I'm sure with the hope that there'll be some new plans for next week, but what they will be are not clear at this moment. They've had to, as well as districts across the country and across the state, there are schools that are so understaffed that they have to close a particular school.
Yeah.
If you don't have the staff to run the school because they have to stay home and quarantine because of their positive tests, you really don't have a lot of options.
no, you can't do anything. So
You
Yeah.
can't.
yeah,
Right. And so the issue right now in California is that and when the new legislature came in and they passed the laws around how school was going to reopen, they had not anticipated this, of course. And so they had really wanted to make sure that we didn't go back into distance learning as a state. And so they basically prohibited it. So now they're going to have to make an amendment because at least for this month, the month of January 2022, it appears that it's going to be impossible for everybody to. There will be certain districts that probably will be unscathed. I think that's probably true, just in the general scheme of things. But most districts will have these issues, and they need to have the ability to decide whether or not be able to adapt and continue on virtually.
they've got to be able to adapt, be flexible, pivot sometimes, and it's
Mhm.
going to be very site specific.
Exactly.
They're not all going to be the same, and we
No.
all have to be patient and supportive. Everybody's
Right. And
doing the best
working
they-
as a team rather than looking for people to blame.
yes, teamwork, collaboration.
You
That's
know,
what works. That's what works. Yeah,
that really is what needs to happen at this point. So when you look at people are demoralized because we had thought it was over, and hopefully it will be over soon, but it's not over right now.
not yet.
It's not over right now, and the frustration is enormous to so many people, and we just need to honor that and understand that. And so the answer, or part of the answers for us, will be what they do in Sacramento. Right. So the governor is going to have his budget. It's either today or Monday. And he's also going to have to make some decisions about, maybe he'll do an executive order. He's got to tell these districts, give the districts support around what they can do for distance learning. But obviously some places have no choice, and they've already gone out and made the decision for a temporary distance learning. And this is not that people think, oh, they tricked us 2 years ago, said it was going to be 2 weeks and it was a whole year.
It's like we could have predicted the future. Come on. Yes, like nobody's doing this because it's fun.
You have vaccinations, right? But also how you're going to do the way different districts approach the vaccine mandates, totally determined by each of their communities. And even those are fluid. People are having to change deadlines. They're having to change. Things are changing. They had to see how the community adapted to the requirements that they put in. And they also have to have an answer to how to continue to educate children.
Yeah. That too.
Yeah, that too.
That too. And everything else.
So all of that is happening right now. The other thing that's happening in Sacramento is a big turnover in the players, in our electeds, because there are people who are termed out. There are folks that are retiring, and a lot of the leadership in the education policy world and on the various committees is also changing. So we get to watch how that plays itself out, because that's going to be a really interesting, it's going to be interesting to watch who the new leaders are going to be as we go forward.
Yeah, in terms of education and the education bills and who is going to be supportive of those. And that's calls upon all of us to be communicate more about what we support and don't support. So those are things we'll be bringing up. And I'm on the legislative committee for Contra Costa Board of Ed. And so we're bringing up a lot of those issues and what bills we need to take action on to support. So that's coming up also.
Right, and we have done that here when we've done our take action, and really what we look at when we make some decisions about what the most important ones are the ones that are supported by the California Teachers Association, CTA.
CTA.
Right? They have folks that are very deeply involved in solving problems in our school systems by legislation. Right? They have attorneys and a team that helps write legislation, who work together with our legislators. And that's what we need to be really conscious of the bills that they're looking at. I mean, the one right now that comes to mind is there's a bill that would change state funding around whether or not you're paid for students, for every student who's enrolled versus every student who attended.
Oh yeah, that
is a big
big
bill.
one. Yeah.
And that's something that people need to support, because whether a child, especially now with COVID, if a family stays home because their child has COVID or somebody in the family has an exposure, we're not going to get paid for them because they're not attending.
Yeah. Average
right?
ADA.
And that's, the costs to educate them have not changed.
Yeah.
Right. So that's this whole idea of being paid for attendance versus being paid for enrollment.
Yeah.
And California many states it makes much more sense to pay for enrollment rather than attendance. Absolutely. It really doesn't make any sense to pay just on attendance. Like it's somehow you're trying to say that it's easier for the teachers if 2 less people are in her room. It's not easier.
Fair, you still gotta turn the lights on. You still have to clean. No,
and you still have to deliver the lesson, right? I mean, this is right. Yeah. So it's minimal amount that's different in terms of the cost to the district. So that's the biggest bill right now.
Good for us to support.
And so there are changes. You do have some changes on the at the county level now, right?
Yes, the County Board of Ed. Now, Sarah Butler is the president of the board. for this year, and I will be the vice president. And her and I will be, yeah, and doing that together. So I'm really looking forward to it. I seen some nice collaborative type changes, in the culture a little bit. So
Right. You don't have to do everything the way we always did it, right?
yeah, we can make things a little easier, I think. So yeah, so those are some changes, and we stay pretty much the same committees. Like I'm going to be on the legislative committee with Annette, Trustee Lewis also. So the others pretty much stay the same. But yeah,
Great.
yeah,
That's great. Well, and the legislature, the legislative committee will be activated, right? It hadn't been activated before.
right. It's new as of, last year, but we have I think we had just one meeting. And so now we're going to meet on a regular basis and support legislation and write resolutions and letters of support, all of that. Because like you said, a lot of changing seats up in Sacramento, we need to have our voices heard. So
Exactly.
we'll be
And
very,
what folks need to understand is legislation provides the solutions, right? We can change rules that were up there that are no longer useful, that, in many ways, inhibit us from moving forward. And that's how you have to look at it. It is really important to understand that that's where the rulemaking is made, and that does have an impact on our classrooms. The other big thing that is marching ahead is they're still going to have the recall of the school board in San Francisco
they got this.
next month.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing to follow. There had been so many threats against different school boards, and of course there still are people threatening school boards for many different reasons. But the San Francisco one is sort of a unique thing to the city of San Francisco, and theirs is going ahead. And so we'll follow up on that.
Okay.
And there were some press conferences on, this one is the national. I'll just bring this up. Because this is going to have an impact in California this year. In Ohio, 100 school districts are suing the state because the state has a program to give voucher money to private schools. Now, that is going to be on a version of that program is going to be on the California ballot in November. Most likely. They're going to be out. They're out now paying people to get signatures for that.
Oh my God.
So these school districts are suing because the money comes from them.
Yeah, it's out of their pockets, out of their budgets. Sure.
Right. Out of their budgets. And they're going bankrupt. This is, that's what's happened here. And so this is what it looks like when you do this kind of a program.
Do that. Yeah.
So this is all we've talked about privatizing before, but this is just one more example of what it looks like as you privatize, and the constant effort to pull money from the public education funding, which is too low to begin with, way too low. And when you're just trying to make it lower.
Yeah. And this is money for the public good, the common good that's supposed to be set aside for that. And people want to profit from it. And that's just wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
So we got to be vigilant on that.
And we'll be talking much more about that because I'm sure that we'll be watching them do the collection, the signature collections. They've already set some of that up as we march through this year to November.
Yep.
So I think, do you have a shout out for this week?
I want to have a shout out to the principal at Kennedy High School.
Excellent.
Mr. Jared Scott, and how he's so supportive of the trades in the new Kennedy High School. And I just, I think he's great, doing a good job. So shout out to him.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Mr. Jared Scott, Kennedy High School in Richmond, California. we really do appreciate you, Mr. Scott, and we look forward to all the good things that you're going to continue to grow as we reimagine Kennedy into the future.
Very good.
So
Okay.
that is it for this week. Hopefully, when we return next week, we can have better news around our
Good
schools.
news.
Yes. Let's hope.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.